Our job descriptions and our organization was a little bit of a mashup of process and department and just what needed to get done. But you get to a point where if you want to grow and expand, it makes it really hard to do that when everybody's everywhere.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development.
We're back once again with Mike Foering of Custom Craft, one of the owners. Mike, for people who didn't catch our first episode, can you tell us a little bit about Custom Craft and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Custom Craft, we're a family business. My dad started the business in the early 80s, so we've been in business a little over 40 years now. We are a residential design, build, remodeling company. So we're based out of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and we work predominantly Montgomery, Bucks, a little bit of Chester, a little bit of Delaware counties. So doing design, build, remodeling.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of different people behind every design build project. Can you tell us a little bit about what your structure is like and kind of your approach to leadership?
Yeah, so maybe the best way to answer that is talking a little bit about our structure and kind of how we're set up. So maybe I'll jump ahead a little bit here and I'll talk a little bit about the business operating system or model that we implemented recently and have kind of used throughout the last maybe 7 to 10 years now, but in the last 3 years we really kind of dug into it. It's the Entrepreneurial Operating System, so EOS. It's based from the book Traction, written by Gino Wickman. So brought that here.
On our shelf up there too.
Yeah. So that was introduced to me like a number of years ago and read it. Great book. It really resonated with me. I think in the previous episode I shared, my background is in engineering. And so it really does a nice job of kind of breaking a small business down into, more manageable chunks of, what needs to happen and how. So we kind of went all in at the end of 2023 and have been continuing to implement and kind of roll things out. It's not like, hey, you just start this tomorrow and it's all done. I think it's one of those things that takes time. But as it relates to the structure of the organization, it does a nice job, that the EOS model does a nice job of helping you kind of break down the key elements. And most businesses kind of have all these anyway. Like if you're an existing business, somebody has to sell something, somebody has to produce something. It could be a service or it could be a good, and then somebody's got to manage the money. So like, just to be in business, you're doing all those things. But I think what EOS has done is just kind of made it a little more structured. And so we pretty much followed that exact structure. So we've got a sales and marketing branch, and that is all one for us. So we don't have a separate marketing branch. It's all kind of covered under sales and marketing. I am the sales and marketing manager, so I head that area of the business. And then we have the operations side for us is split into two branches. So we have our design team. Brittany Murray is our design manager. So she heads up our design department. And then our production team, Matt Hill's our production manager, and Matt manages our production team. So, the designers take the challenges that our homeowners are experiencing and the homes that they're living in and the constraints and things of the home, and they figure out how to redesign things to accomplish the challenges and execute the vision the homeowners have. And then the production team, those are the guys and gals that are actually out there doing the work to actually convert those spaces into, this new space that hopefully is beautiful and solves the issues and is functional and all those things. And then the last part of the branch is our finance and admin branch. My dad, George, heads up that branch, and that covers all the the money, the HR, the office management, all that's covered in there. So that's kind of like how we're structured. And then at the top here in the EOS model, they have two seats at the top known as the visionary and the integrator. And the visionary is generally the person that had the initial inspiration to, hey, we want to do something a little different, and here's what we're thinking. And they kind of lay out this vision of what the business, where it's headed and what we're going to do and what it's going to look like. So my dad's in the visionary seat. And then there's another box that's called the integrator. And that's the person that kind of helps execute that vision. So they're more the nuts and bolts of, okay, here's where we want to go. Let's get down into the nitty gritty of how we're actually going to make this occur. And so that's me. And maybe that would equate to somewhat of a general manager or something like that, where you have an owner that's kind of a little more visionary, and then you have another one that is kind of working on the nuts and bolts of it. So I don't know. I may have gone a little astray there, but
I think that's perfect. So what is kind of like the flow of command through that structure then? I guess it's kind of pyramidic, where you have your two guys up top and then your managers of the departments. How deep down do you dive when you're managing things? Do you kind of just deal with your managers, or do you kind of go down to the full flow all the way to the bottom level of the teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as it relates to like executing things in the business, I think we definitely try to work within the teams. And of course, there's a lot of, there's a lot of cross communication. Sales needs to talk with the design team, and eventually, design's going to need to talk to whoever's assigned from the production team, and then someone from, accounts receivable might need to talk to somebody in production or somebody in design. So there is a lot of cross communication that happens. But as it relates to like decision making and process, and hey, here's how we're going to do it, that is done kind of within the branch and is run by the branch manager. So as head of the sales and marketing branch, I am working with my team on how we want to structure our sales processes, our marketing plan, and those things. And that would carry through to each of the other branches. And then we meet at the leadership level. So, we've got 4 branches in our business. And each branch kind of has a head person assigned, or a manager assigned to manage that branch. And we meet weekly as a team. And, we have our own, kind of our own challenges and our own plans for driving the business forward. But I think generally what also ends up happening is, each branch of the business, as you're evolving and as you're even just executing the work that, you're contracted to do, challenges come up, and ideally those challenges are solved within the branch, hopefully like at whatever level it occurred at. But if it can't be, then it does get escalated. And then eventually it may work its way up to our leadership meeting, where it's like, hey, we're encountering this unique challenge that we have not encountered before. How do we want to tackle that? And we'll come up as a group, we'll, try to come up with how we want to approach it. So I think, long answer for, you try to kind of keep things contained. But sometimes, challenges need to kind of climb the ladder and to get solved.
And you had mentioned earlier, we were talking about how you like to bring humor and emotional awareness into management. Can you kind of explain what that means to you and how you implement that?
Yeah. So, I think that started for me maybe, as I kind of decided that, hey, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is, I want to work in this business and I want to kind of build something unique and different and successful. You start thinking like, man, I spend a lot of time here, probably 40 hours is probably the minimum. Maybe someday I'll be able to, work less than that and have a business that's successfully kind of working out there. But you spend so much time in it. I think it started with me making sure, maybe a little bit selfishly, that hey, I want to enjoy my time here. Like I'm here all the time. I want to feel like, I want to wake up and go to the office and work with the folks that are part of our team. And by nature, I like to laugh. I like to smile. I like to have fun. And so I think part of it probably came from me. And it's like, hey, I want to be in a space where we can, at times be a little more casual. Now I think everybody knows that, hey, all right, we've got a project coming up that we need to kind of buckle down. But, just day to day, we're trying to, be in a space where we want to come and smile and have fun. And in doing that, I think I have found that it is a lot easier to communicate with people when, there's a smile on your face and their face, and so that is something that I try to incorporate. And sometimes it comes up at odd times. Like our EOS model is, they kind of guide you to kind of stay on topic, but you will see, like if you sat in on some of our meetings, if something funny comes up or somebody makes an observation, we may go off task for a little bit to just kind of explore that and maybe have a little bit of fun at that moment. And I think that's like part of keeping people engaged, and and I want people to want to come to work too, and I want people to enjoy, time together. So that's kind of how it evolved. Again, it kind of started maybe with my own personal, preferences for just wanting to have it. And I've just kind of found that, that is a better way maybe to engage with people. I think you get more, more interaction, and more buy-in, I think, when people are generally feeling like it's a positive experience.
Yeah, it kind of just goes back to your company culture. Like that's something we've always implemented, is just when everyone knows what they're supposed to do and what their responsibilities are, you can all just kind of have fun and get your job done. It doesn't have to be this stern guy in the corner like driving the whip on everybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. I will say though that it takes effort to do that. Like you have to conscientiously work at that, because I think inevitably, challenges with projects or clients or, just you're working with people. So, they have challenges at home that, you would love that don't get brought into work, but it's inevitable. And I'm guilty of it too. So you do have to kind of make a concerted effort to like kind of maintain that and remember like, hey, let's have a little fun here. Like, I know we've been really serious, but let's dial the serious down a little bit here and, realize that we're trying to enjoy the ride too. So.
Did you guys run into any challenges when you were structuring out your team and working with managers, maybe training them on leadership abilities to kind of follow your guys' standards?
Well, I would say right off the bat, I mean, we've been very fortunate with, the folks that we have on staff. I mean, we've got like a great team. We certainly have had folks over the years that maybe weren't quite the right fit, and the decision was made that, hey, this isn't quite working for us here. But the folks that have kind of stuck around and stuck with us, we've been super fortunate. And so as we've kind of grown into this new model, we were able to work with some of the staff that we had and knew our processes. They knew our system. They were excited to be part of kind of that next iteration. So in that way, I'd say we were super fortunate. And I think that we're not done growing. I think that, we've got plans to continue to improve and grow. And there's probably going to come a time where we're going to have to hire somebody to fill, a little bit more of a senior role. But to date, we've been fortunate that we've been able to kind of train and kind of groom some of the folks that have been with us. And it's been a learning process, and we've learned together, like how to do this. And it's not always perfect. And I think that's, if you were to ask somebody on the team, my perspective on that, I hope they would tell you, and I think they would, that, hey, making mistakes is fine. I think what we're that's how you learn. And I think that, oftentimes both myself and my dad, I think are pretty good at just kind of like, let's, even though I'm not running the design department anymore, Brittany's running that, I kind of have my eye on that, and Brittany's really good about bringing certain things to me. And there are times where I'm like, I might not do it that way, but we'll see how it goes, and she might stumble a little bit or make a mistake. And that's good, because I think that kind of helps her grow and learn. But if I do see something that's kind of heading a little bit like off the rails, where it's like, ooh, that could be like very painful, I might step in and say like, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Are you seeing this too? Maybe we need to look for some solutions here together. So
as you were implementing the EOS traction system into your business, what have been some of the most difficult aspects of that to integrate?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of difficult,
Yeah.
there's a lot of difficult aspects. Um, I mean, it's been great, and I wouldn't change anything, and we're all in on it. But let's see. I think I'm just going back to thinking about the stages of how we implemented it and what they are generally looking for you to do first. I will tell you the one lesson we learned right off the bat was we first tried self-implementing. So, we had the book. There's actually another book that goes along with this called Get a Grip, which is a little bit more of a fable version of this, which I actually like a little bit better because it reads like a story. But we tried self-implementing, and I was the implementer as well as the integrator, two different terms. So, here I was at our meetings, and like I got the book out, and I'm like, okay, guys, it says here that the first thing we need to do is this, and we're kind of brainstorming, and we did that for probably about 3 to 4 months, and it was like, this is not working, because I felt like, I was not part of any of the conversations because I was trying to guide the discussion. And so it's really hard to be the guide of the discussion as well as like a thinking participant. So that was probably the first challenge we hit. And then we decided, all right, we're going to go out and we're going to hire, they have EOS at this point is big enough that it's kind of similar to the Sandler model. There are local implementers all across the country that, you can work with. And so we did that. We interviewed a couple, ended up, hiring a woman in the Blue Bell area, Maria. She's been fantastic to kind of help us. And she took over that role. And so that was not an inexpensive investment, but well worth it because now I could participate and I wasn't having to kind of learn as we go. The other thing that I'll say about having an implementer is there are so many nuances to EOS that having somebody that has done this with multiple companies and has seen people struggle and teams struggle at certain intervals, like she's already aware of that, and she's already like, all right, guys, what I see when companies try to implement this is this and this. Here's how I want you guys to approach it. Never would have known some of those things. Mm-hmm. Or the importance of some areas. There's some things that's like, hey guys, this is really important that you get this right, and you'll see why in a couple months. And she was 100% right. And it was like, okay, I'm glad we took the time to do it that way. So that was probably like the first challenge, was just figuring out how to roll this thing out. I think that maybe one of the next things that we encountered is I think we fell into that category of, we had job descriptions and we generally knew what we needed to do to produce, the work that we needed to produce. However, I would say our job descriptions and our organization was a little bit of a mashup of, process and department and just what needed to get done, So, we had, some folks from the admin team doing work in production, and some people in production were participating in design or billing or something like that, because you're a small business and that's generally how you start. Everybody's doing a little bit of everything. But you get to a point where if you want to grow and expand, it makes it really hard to do that when everybody's everywhere. You start to need to kind of create some more structure and process in specific areas. And that is a challenge. So the EOS way of doing that is what they call the accountability chart, which is kind of like the next iteration of an org chart, where not only are you, the accountability chart is kind of listing it like an org chart, but you're also kind of adding in there what that seat on the org chart is responsible for. And that was tough, because now all of a sudden, somebody that was doing, roles in multiple areas of the business, we had to take a step back and say, is that really the way that it should be happening if we want to see growth occur and if we want to improve our efficiency? Because I think, as a small business, you're just like kind of brought up with like everybody chipping in everywhere. And to shift your mind away from that is not easy.
So what did it look like to pull some of these people out? Because those are probably people who are high up in the business, right? Working a little bit on everything.
Yeah.
Or just long-term employees.
Long term.
Yeah.
So what did it look like? Were you pulling them out of certain places and just saying like, you need to just focus on this now?
Yeah, I think it was more about shifting the roles. I think we actually had we had an org chart, so I think, and it was something that was shared and known across the company, and we kept it relatively up to date. But what I think we struggled with was, putting the responsibilities, like for instance, we have, a financial manager who's responsible for accounts receivable, accounts payable, those types of things. So previously we had, our office manager was doing some of the accounts receivable, or maybe doing some of the postings that now the bookkeeper was responsible for. So it was more or less like shifting the responsibilities of each of the boxes. And that was, that took some time. It didn't it's not like it's not like we decided Friday to do this and Monday we showed up and everybody was now doing it, the new way. I think it just took time to, hey, this quarter, we want to slowly transition this responsibility to this other box on the accountability chart, and it will be done by this other person. Let's figure out how to do that and start to make that transition happen. And we're still not 100% of the way there. We're still tweaking that as we, grow. And it's like, man, this position is starting to feel a little overwhelming. Maybe we need to, split that into two positions. But I think what EOS would tell you in that decision is make sure you're splitting it because that's what's best for the business, not because, you're trying to like shuffle, personnel, responsibilities around. It's, they want you to organize it. Hey, what take people out of the equation? What's the best way for the business to produce this, this task? So yeah, it wasn't something that happened immediately. It was an evolution, and we just kind of set some targets and slowly started to, shift it, and we're still doing it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something really eye-opening for us in our business, was reading through the E-Myth, where I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's kind of similar to Traction, but their whole thing is to create your business in the franchise model, where you could basically give someone a book, which is the blueprint of all your business systems, and then they could successfully start and run your business somewhere else without you. Because when you have that role where, like on a small team like us, there's 4 people, we've mapped all the different hats and positions. And me and Jeremy have like 8 or 9 hats each.
Yeah.
To go meta a step further back, we had a client a long time ago. He was running a pretty successful, it was a pretty large business, doing, I don't know, probably between 3 and 5 million in revenue, but he was like the one-man show there, and he was a guy in his 70s, and he died kind of unexpectedly, and his wife took over the business, and he had no maps of anything of what he was doing, what any of his systems were, and it took her just a year to like even kind of begin to crack the code on that.
Yeah.
And it's scary when you think about it from that perspective. Like, if you were to disappear, would the business still be able to function? Would there be a seat to fill, or would it be a mess to unravel?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big values of structuring things, is to lay your business out in a way that someone can come in and take over for you.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, the EOS model does a nice job of kind of presenting that. Inherently, maybe it was because of my engineering background, like that was kind of my just underlying philosophy, was always, let me kind of set these things up so that I can eventually not do that task. And, I think as business owners, we have the ability to, kind of earmark maybe areas that bring us the most satisfaction and joy, and try to structure the business so we can slowly migrate into, that box that, resonates with us.
Just doing the fun work.
Yeah,
that you like to do.
that
Yeah.
you like to do. And so I think in order to do that, you got to kind of like those areas that it's like, oh man, as soon as I have the chance, I am leaving this box on the org chart, and I am going to start just documenting and kind of outlining how this box works, so that when I hire somebody, to do it, they've got some resources on how to integrate it. I think the other element to that, though, is when you have a situation where, somebody is just, wearing so many hats, or maybe is in so many boxes, it also makes it a little bit hard to evolve and get better, because I think that's one of the things that I've seen as we've kind of grown and we've brought in these like talented, smart people is, they're better than I am at things in their area of the business sometimes. And it's great to it's like, man, I never would have done that, and now Custom Craft is benefiting from the fact that, you've got somebody in this box that understands what's needed and can bring their kind of passion and experience and expertise to make it more than I thought it could be. And if, as an owner, if you're like constantly in every box, you're not giving yourself or your business the benefit of like taking advantage of that, and that's something that, I've just seen, on a small scale, because we're a modest, small business. But I've already seen like, man, it's impressive. And the whole AI thing is just like accelerating what people can do, because it's like, they've got an idea, and now it's like, oh man, you can just go on AI and like, just like explode that even more. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve.
I know who knows where it's going to go with the exponential growth ability of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thanks again for coming on. We have one more episode coming up. We're going to talk about creating a 5-star customer experience. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.